Hello, friends. Let's talk upon a new topic that is inflation. As you all know about inflation, the meaning, concepts, measurements, and other related aspects of it. Now we'll discuss the causes, effects, and measures of controlling inflation. Firstly, we'll study the important causes of inflation. Increase in money supply. When the monetary authorities increase the money supply and access of the supply of goods and services, it results in additional demand and consequent increase in price level. Deficit finance. An increase in money supply also takes place when the government resorts to deficit financing to incur the public expenditure. Deficit financing undertaken for unproductive investment or expenditure becomes purely inflationary. Credit creation. Commercial banks increase the quantity of money in circulation when they advance loans through credit creation. Credit creation is similar to that of deficit financing in its effects. Exports. Exports reduce the goods available in domestic market. Export earnings enhance the purchasing power of the exporters and other linked with export. An increase in export would aggravate the situation by reducing the supply of goods and at the same time pushing up the demand. Repayment of public debt. Public debt is a common feature of modern governments. When such debt are repaid, people will have more income at their disposal. Additional disposal income tends to raise the demand of goods and services. Black money. Social and economic evils like corruption, tax, evasion, smuggling, and other illegal activities may give rise to unaccounted or black money. People will have black money indulge in extravaganza, affecting demand and thus the price level. Population. The size of population is one of the important determinants of demand. In many developing countries, population is large in size and still increasing. India provides an example where demand outstrips supply due to the large and increasing population. Increase in wages. When price increases due to increase in wages, it is called wage push inflation. Wages are influenced by many factors besides the demand and supply forces. Trade unions play an important role in deciding the wage rate. Strong and powerful trade unions succeed in securing higher wages for their members. The burden of higher wages is usually shifted forward on the consumers in the form of higher prices unless the demand is highly elastic. Increase in material cost. Prices of material used in producing goods constitute a significant part of the cost. Prices of the materials may increase either due to an increase in demand for these materials or independently owing to national and international developments. The best example in this context is crude oil price. Increase in profit margin. Firms operating under others will be compelled to raise their price due to the higher material cost as a result of initial spurt in administered prices. The desire to have a higher profit margins by all those who have the power to do so becomes the cause of inflationary trend. Other factors. Cost of production may increase when prices go up due to scarcity, that is, natural or artificial. Natural calamities like drought or floods adversely affect the supplies of raw materials, thus making them dearer. Firms operating with excess capacity, either because of monopolistic competitive market or any other reason, produced at higher cost. Now, let us study the effects of inflation. Inflation, where price level increases and value of money declines, affects the economic activities and people in different ways. Investment and production. If the inflation occurs in a less than full employment economy, it stimulates investment. Increasing price level would bring more profit as there is always a time gap between the increase in price and the cost of production. Underemployed resources will be employed fully without substantial increase in cost. Increase in investment results in more production. At this stage, inflation discourages savings and investment, promotes malallocation of resources, disturbs the market mechanism, leads to speculation, black marketing, and other illegal economic activities. Real income. Real income or purchasing power of money declines. We have already discussed the inverse relation between the price level and money value. An increase in price need not always reduce the real income if money and income also increases accordingly. A 10% increase in price accompanied by a 10% hike in the money income would have the real income of the people unaffected. Employment. Inflation provides the incentive to invest and produce. Employment opportunities increase with additional investment. To provide more employment or reduce unemployment, the price level should be allowed to increase. An inverse relationship therefore can be established between inflation and unemployment. If the economy wants a very stable price level, it should be prepared to accept a higher percentage of unemployment. Income distribution. During inflation, prices of all goods and services or of different sectors do not increase at an uniform rate. Entrepreneurs usually earn more profits unless the profits are nullified by the increase in cost. Speculators stand to gain. Farmers. Farmers earn more income due to increase in agricultural prices. Inflation would also help them to pay off their old debts, as their money income increases during this period. It is, however, difficult to say whether the farmers are the net gainers. Fixed income group. Wage and salary earners and people who live on rent, pension, past savings or fixed amount of interest constitute the fixed income group. This group is usually the middle class. However, the additional wages, salaries and dearness allowances granted by the government do not completely compensate the loss in their real income. Debtors and creditors. Money income of the people increases during inflation. Debts and interest contracted earlier remain constant and thus become easier for the debtors to settle their obligations. The burden of the debt is reduced. The creditors who receive their credit back during the inflation are the losers due to decline in purchasing power of money. Social and political disturbances. Inflation increases the inequality of income and widens the gap between the have and the have-nots. Inflation leads to corruption, black marketing, smuggling, and many other social moral evils. Hyperinflation leads down the public morale. Social tensions lead to political and administrative problems. The government finds it increasingly difficult to maintain law and order. Further, let us study about the measures to control inflation. Inflation must be controlled at an appropriate level. Uncontrolled inflation may turn into hyperinflation. The different measures are monetary measures. An increase in money supply without the corresponding increase in supply of goods and services creates excess demand, causing inflation. Monetary authorities, through monetary instruments, could increase the cost of credit and reduce the money supply. For this, the central bank of the country applies quantitative and qualitative methods. The quantitative methods are bank rate. Inflation compels the central bank of the economy to increase the bank rate. Bank rate is the rate at which the central bank lends money to the member banks. An increase in bank rate makes borrowing easier costly, thus discouraging borrowing leading to a check on increase in supply. Open market operation. Under this method, a central bank sells or purchases government securities in the market. Anybody can participate in this purchase or sale. Hence, it is called open market operation. The central bank reduces the quantity of money in circulation through the sale of securities and increases the quantity of money by purchasing them. Variable reserve ratio. Variable reserve ratio has two components: cash reserve ratio, also known as CRR, and statutory liquidity ratio, also known as SLR. An increase in this ratio reduces the ability to create credit. A reduction in CRR and SLR increases the reserves with banks and consequently their ability to expend credit. Fiscal measures. Inflation cannot be controlled by monetary measures alone. They should be supported by fiscal measures. The fiscal measures are: first, taxation; second, public borrowing; third, compulsory saving; fourth, public expenditure. Direct and indirect taxes. Direct and indirect taxes are levied to reduce the disposable income of the people. While imposing the tax, care should be taken to avoid the adverse effect of taxation on savings, investment, and production. Essential commodities should be taxed lest inflation be aggravated. Public borrowing. Public borrowing can be undertaken to reduce the quantity of public with the money. It is a costly instrument since the government has to pay interest on public loans. Repayment of public loans during inflation should be avoided. This would prevent additional money supply and consequent additional demand. Compulsory saving. Compulsory saving or any other forced saving scheme and deferred payment are some other instruments to reduce excess demand. Public expenditure. Public expenditure is the major source of injecting money into the economy. Modern welfare states spend huge amount of money through public projects and welfare schemes. Public expenditure should be reduced during inflation. Though it is difficult to cut down public expenditure, the government should attempt to avoid all unproductive expenditure. Lastly, we have direct measures. Direct measures comprise price control and ceiling on price, especially on essential commodities. Success of these measures depend on its effective implementation, which requires an efficient and honest administration. Supply of essential consumer goods can be undertaken through PDS, that is, Public Distribution System. Classification is divided into two. Increase in supply. In inflation, there is shortage of goods and services, that is, controlled demand through monetary and fiscal measures, which is not in much use. Here the solution lies in increasing the supply of money and goods and services by improving the working of supply chains. Indexation. Inflation affects all sections of people. Among the different sections, wage, salary earners and other fixed income groups suffer the most. To compensate against inflation, a method of indexation of their income can be introduced. Control of inflation is a must and should be attempted before it crosses a moderate limit. Attempts to control inflation by any particular type of measures are bound to fail. Here we finish with our inflation topic. Thank you for paying attention.